Perfect. Thank you, everyone. So once again, welcome to Finding Seminal Research. Today's workshop is going to introduce you to resources that you can use to locate seminal works within a particular discipline. You're going to have techniques at the end of this hour that will help you become more effective at searching for this type of information. We have several learning objectives that we'll accomplish by the end of the hour. First off, I'm going to introduce you to our Finding Seminal Works guide. So we have a guide which directly correlates with this workshop. It's textual-based information. If you need a refresher on anything that we cover in the workshop, you can absolutely refer to the Finding Seminal Works guide, so I'll make sure you know where that is. You're also going to completely understand what seminal works are and why they are important to a literature review. And then lastly, we're going to spend the major portion of this workshop talking about how to identify and use appropriate databases for finding seminal research, as well as appropriate internet resources outside of the library for finding seminal research. Let's begin by going to that Finding Seminal Works page I mentioned. That's going to be located on our research process page. To get there, you're going to hover over Research Help in the main menu bar, and about midway down that list, you'll go ahead and select Research Process. The research process is a guide that we, the NCU librarians, have developed, and it's intended to walk you through every single step of conducting research, everything from finding a research topic all the way to scholarly publication, so publishing that journal article or maybe that book. Our section today is going to be found under Resources for a Literature Review, and it's the last section listed under this sub-menu, Finding Seminal Works. Again, this information directly corresponds with today's workshop. So if you need a refresher on anything, or perhaps you want to further your understanding of seminal works and see even more resources that you can utilize, this guide is going to prove to be invaluable. Let's start by defining seminal works. Seminal works, they can also be referred to as pivotal or landmark studies, sometimes classic papers. They are works that initially presented an idea of great importance or great influence within a particular discipline. These works may be referred to as a breakthrough, or perhaps they provided a unique insight or a new synthesis of ideas. They are highly regarded in academia. What you will find is that seminal works are referred to time and time again. So as you are embarking on your research on a particular discipline or on a particular topic, you're likely to see these sources being frequently cited within journal articles, within books, dissertations, and so on. If there are any questions on that definition I just provided, please let me know. But we are going to move on to the next section of our outline, which is in regards to finding seminal works. So how do you actually go about and identify seminal works? Identifying seminal works relies heavily on your own thoroughness in the examination and synthesis of the scholarly literature. So as I just mentioned, you're naturally going to see these studies popping up time and time again. Typically, there's not going to be any type of explicit label placed on that resource defining it as seminal, though. Rather, you're just going to see the same authors or the same articles cited frequently. That's going to be your dead giveaway that it's a seminal work. There's something that I want to stress, and we have it placed in bold font in the outline as well. When you're looking for seminal studies, it's quite possible that some of them will be dated and have been published some time ago. So when looking for seminal works, we definitely recommend that you do not place any type of date limiter on your searches. For example, if you are limiting your search to only the past 5 years, it's very probable that you're going to exclude seminal studies from your results. In order to avoid overlooking that pivotal research that may have occurred in years past, it's recommended that you don't use that date limiter. All right, we are moving on to databases that you can use within the library for finding seminal works. But if anyone has questions on anything that we've discussed thus far, so far I've defined seminal works and we've talked about how you go about identifying them. If there are any questions on that, please let me know in chat. We're going to take a look at several library databases that you can use to find seminal works. We do have those databases listed here within the Finding Seminal Works guide, but I am going to proceed back to the library's homepage. Keep in mind that anytime you're trying to get to any specific library database, it's really easy. All you need to do is click on A to Z databases in the main navigation bar on the library's homepage. Here we have an alphabetical breakdown of every single database which NCU Library subscribes to. The first database that we are going to look at is a database titled Sage Navigator. I'm going to use the alphabetical navigation menu here at the top. I'll click on S. We'll scroll down and select Sage Navigator. Sage Navigator is an essential social sciences literature review tool. And actually, I want to start with this database because it is the only database which explicitly identifies seminal works for you. If you recall what I said just a little bit ago, when identifying seminal works or attempting to identify seminal works, it largely depends upon your own analysis. However, Sage Navigator is the exception. It will tell you that a particular resource is considered a seminal work, and it is the only database that will do so. So I mentioned Sage Navigator. It's an essential social sciences literature review tool. For each research area within the database, you can find an overview of nearly 300 topics written by renowned academics, and it's going to include recommended works as well as an interactive chronology. So it's really a great way to get an overview of a topic. And those overviews are going to be referred to as major works. And then the major works are going to contain something called key readings. We're going to take a look at both. Now here on the Sage Navigator homepage, you have the option of browsing specific collections down here, or you can use the search bar up at the top. I do want to mention, though, that when you're searching in here for a topic, you will want to keep it rather broad. I understand that your topic may be particularly granular and refined, but you want to think broader scope here because we're just trying to identify the major research topic and find seminal works that are attached to it. Just as an example, we'll say that my overarching topic is looking at organizational behavior. I'm going to type that into my top search box. So obviously, my research topic is going to be much more refined than just organizational behavior. But again, I'm trying to identify seminal works related to this field, so I kept my search a bit more broad here within Sage Navigator. We have a list of results, and each one you can see is identified as a major work. Let's go ahead and click on this result for fundamentals of organizational behavior. Being defined as a major work, what you're going to be presented with, if we scroll down, are two main tabs. One referred to as the overview and the other is referred to as key readings. The overview is precisely that. You're going to be presented with an overview of the field. There's going to be an introduction as well as subtopics related to the fundamentals of organizational behavior. So if I wanted to better my understanding of the emergence of this field and critical movements or changes that have happened within it, then I would read this overview in its entirety. Once I've examined that overview, then I can toggle over to the next tab, which is key readings. And this is really the meat of it. The key readings is truly where we want to be spending the majority of our time if we happen to be seeking seminal works. Key readings is synonymous for seminal works. So these are the seminal works that are related to the fundamentals of organizational behavior. Again, Sage Navigator is the only database that is going to explicitly identify seminal works for you. We'll also talk about this chronology chart at the top of the page here. The chronology plots the main research or key readings by year. So it's a really good way for you to look at trends within the research. When were peaks occurring? When did research drop off? Is this still a relevant topic in academic literature? Once you scroll below that chronology, here is where we hit the key readings. They're going to be organized in a table of contents, and they're going to correspond to the topics that are discussed in the overview. But you could change this sort order if you like. You could also change it to title or perhaps date. So you can see, recall that I mentioned many seminal works are going to be dated. And that's why we recommend not setting a date limiter when you're trying to find seminal works. You can see that the majority of ours here are dating back to the 1960s. So once you select a particular key reading, you can click on any of these titles. What you should be seeing is citation information, possibly an abstract on that particular key reading, and then at the very bottom you have a link to this full text seminal work. Are there any questions on Sage Navigator? I'll reiterate once more, this is the only database that will identify the seminal works for you. So what we're looking at right now happens to be a seminal work that's related to the fundamentals of organizational behavior. But the other databases we're about to move into are not going to explicitly identify those works. Instead, it's going to be up to our own analysis. If you do have questions, just let me know in chat. I'm going to head back to the library's homepage. Actually, I'm going to head to the A to Z databases page so that we can go to our next database, which is Web of Knowledge. Using the alphabetical navigation at the top here, I'll go to W, then we'll proceed to Web of Knowledge. Web of Knowledge provides access to current and retrospective bibliographic information, author abstracts, and cited references in social science journals, and it covers over 50 disciplines. Web of Knowledge allows us to do something. It allows us to conduct citation analysis. And what that means is that we are going to identify works on a particular research topic which are highly cited. And I'll explain in a second why that's important. Using our basic search box here, we'll say that my area of interest is taking a look at job satisfaction. Type that topic into my search box, go ahead and click search. And with Web of Knowledge, the default sort order, so how our results are displayed here, is publication date newest to oldest. You can see some of these are actually advanced publication. We're seeing results for December of this year. Now that's fantastic if we're looking for the most recent research. However, the purpose of this workshop, and our purposes right now, are to be finding seminal works. A dead giveaway that a resource is a seminal work is if it's been highly cited in the literature. And if you're not exactly sure what I mean, what I'm referring to is how many researchers have found that particular article useful and they have used it within their own research. So they have cited it within their research. When a resource has been highly cited, that typically means that it has had some kind of groundbreaking impact on the research field. What we want to do here within Web of Knowledge then is sort our results by time cited highest to lowest. We want to see those articles which have been cited the most. We're going to do that using the sort by option at the very top here. Again, you can see that the default is publication date newest to oldest. I'm going to open that up, however, and change it to time cited highest to lowest. And we'll give that a second to resort itself. All right, so once our results are displayed, over on the right-hand side is where we'll see an indicator of how many times each source has been cited. You can see that our first result here has been cited 8,632 times. That's a lot of citations. That means that over 8,000 researchers have taken a look at that article, and they've determined that the research is exceptionally valuable, and so they've used some piece of knowledge in that resource to conduct their own research. This is a dead giveaway that that first result is indeed a seminal article. Now, a question that I frequently get at this point is there a specific number that determines the resource is seminal? And unfortunately, there's not. I can't tell you if you see a resource that's been cited 500 or more times and it's definitely seminal. Basically, it's going to, again, rely upon your analysis of the field. But a high citing number is a clear indicator that it's a seminal work. And Web of Knowledge can clearly tell you how many times a particular resource has been cited. Any questions on Web of Knowledge? Okay. Heading back once more to A to Z databases, we're going to move on to another database, and it's another source type that can be extremely valuable in identifying seminal works. And it's one of those things that it's kind of common sense, but maybe it escaped you. We're going to take a look at ProQuest Dissertations and Theses Global. So we're going to take a look at dissertation resources. I'll toggle over to P here and then select ProQuest Dissertations and Theses Global. This is a database of dissertations published worldwide. There are over 2.1 million full-text dissertations within this database, and that includes the NCU databases, or rather dissertations. So the benefit of looking at dissertations, as you know, typically students will include a section titled Literature Review. And within their literature review, they are going to have identified authors and articles that are considered pivotal or critical to that particular research area. So do you see the benefit in exploring a dissertation? It's very possible that someone who has written on a topic identical to yours or fairly similar to yours has already identified a number of authors and research articles that are seminal that you could then explore in detail. We'll say that my topic of interest is ethical leadership. Once I have my results list, I can take a look at any of these dissertations in full text PDF. And again, what I would be hoping to identify, or the area where I would want to be spending the majority of my time, would be a literature review section within the dissertation. So again, this is where the author is going to identify seminal works and seminal authors for me, and then I could go and try looking up those resources individually within our library. Any questions on the benefit of exploring a dissertation? Okay. Okay, I do have a question. And the question is if we can print, I would assume you mean, can we print any of the dissertations in full text? And you absolutely can. You can print any resource in the library. Just be aware, if you're trying to print these dissertations, they can be upwards of a few hundred pages. So just a forewarning, they can be hefty documents. So you may want to take that into consideration before you start printing out the entire full text. Back on our A to Z page, we just have one more library resource that we're going to explore, and then we're going to take a look at resources external to the library. So another really valuable resource for identifying seminal works is eBooks. And we have a number of ebook databases within NCU Library. Books are likely to identify prominent researchers in the field. They're going to describe key concepts and theories. They'll provide history and evolution of the field as well. What you would be on the lookout for is chapters that are titled background or history or theories. You could also take a look at the references, which may be included at the end of individual chapters or cumulatively at the end of the book. I'm going to clear out all our filters here on A to Z. You can easily get to all of our ebook databases using the filter here for all database types. You'll see that we have a filter specific to ebooks. Now I am just looking at 12 databases, which are comprised of ebooks within our library. I'm going to head to eBook Central, and this is where I would recommend that you start, just because eBook Central happens to be our largest ebook database with over 100,000 full-text titles. You can try searching by any particular keyword. We'll say that I am interested in anything related to family therapy. I'm intentionally just keeping my searches broad so that I can fully demonstrate the usefulness of these databases. All right, we'll select this first book, Basic Family Therapy. And what I wanted to show you with eBook Central, you have the option of reading online. So I'll click on that corresponding button. Once I do so, my table of contents is displayed on the left-hand side. The full text of the book is on the right. I can then proceed to search for some of those keywords that I mentioned and that happen to be outlined in the workshop's outline. You could try looking for the term history or background or theories, and you can search across the entire book. It's going to identify wherever that word appears. And then you can proceed to that section of the book. And again, if you've identified history, background, or theories, it's typically going to identify some seminal authors or seminal works related to that particular research area. Any questions on using eBooks? Or any questions on using the library resources for finding seminal works, because we're actually moving outside of the library to talk about our last two resources here. If you do come up with a question, please let me know in chat. Right now, I'm moving out to Google because the first type of source that we can use external to the library is your basic search engine. Now, I prefer Google, but whatever you prefer to use, what you are able to do is you can try entering some key phrases such as landmark studies, influential studies, or seminal research, and you would combine that with whatever research topic you have. So our example in the outline, perhaps you're looking for landmark studies related to psychology. Now, what I do want to stress here is that you never ever want to assume that a study is pivotal simply because you found it on somebody's blog post stating such. When you are looking at information out on the open web, you should heavily scrutinize that information to ensure that it is authoritative and reliable. Let's try an example search ourselves. We'll say that we're looking for landmark studies related to social psychology. So I'm going to try social psychology, or rather, let me do seminal studies in psychology. Okay. So as I mentioned, we would want to heavily scrutinize any websites that we encounter here, any blogs. You always want to evaluate information that's out on the web. We do have an entire workshop on website evaluation, and there is a guide on website evaluation that is hyperlinked in the workshop outline as well. We'll take a look at this first result, which is titled Gerard Keegan's Seminal Studies in Social Psychology. Now again, I don't know who Gerard Keegan is. I don't know if these are truly seminal studies. I don't know his credentials. I have no information here other than it's a website, and technically anyone could build a website on anything. So what I would want to do is I want to double check, are these articles that he has listed highly cited? So remember what we did in Web of Knowledge? We looked at how many times articles had been cited, and a high number indicated that it was a seminal work. That is precisely what we could do in this case. We could open up Web of Knowledge, we could copy and paste one of these article titles in there and see how many times it's been cited. But another tool that you can use external to the library that functions very similarly to Web of Knowledge is Google Scholar. For those of you who are not familiar with Google Scholar, you get to it simply by typing into your URL browser bar scholar.google.com. Google Scholar provides a simple way to broadly search for scholarly literature. From one place, you can search across many disciplines and sources. You're going to find articles, theses, books, abstracts, court opinions. It's going to be from academic publishers, professional societies, online repositories, universities, and other websites. Google Scholar helps you find relevant work across the world of scholarly research. So this is very similar to Web of Knowledge, and it can help us identify how many times a particular source has been cited. Let's go back to Gerard Keegan's site, and let's take this particular article titled Cognitive Consequences of Forced Compliance. According to Gerard Keegan, it is a highly cited seminal work, but let's put it into Google Scholar and see what Google Scholar tells us. So here is my result, Cognitive Consequences of Forced Compliance. And over on the left-hand side, I can see that it has been cited 3,408 times. That is quite a number of times. So I personally would feel confident in saying that this is indeed a seminal work, based off how many times it has been highly cited. And the last thing that I wanted to mention here with Google Scholar is capable of being linked to NCU Library, and you can see that linking here would produce access to the full text at NCU in any instances where we have that resource available. If you would like more information on linking your Google Scholar to NCU Library, please let me know in chat. I'll be happy to give you more information on that. But that is everything that I have